In Greek mythology, Hermes was the messenger of the gods, known for his ability to traverse the cosmos in an instant, able to move freely between the realm of the mortals and the home of the Olympians. He was also known to journey into the underworld and return. Could this legendary deity have been more than just a fast runner? Could Hermes have been a time traveler from the future visiting Earth during the days of the ancient Greeks? Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to examine the many myths about Hermes, starting with some of his most defining characteristics. Let us see if there is any truth to the idea that the Greek god may have actually been a time traveler. When we think of Hermes, one of the first things that comes to mind are his famous winged sandals. The winged helmet he wore further symbolized his connection to speed. But these items also hinted at another aspect of his persona, his ability to move between the realms of existence. By wearing these symbols, Hermes showed his power to cross over into other dimensions. In Greek mythology, Hermes was the messenger of the gods, and was known for his ability to travel quickly between Earth and the home of the Olympians. On Mount Olympus, he was also known to venture into hell and return safely. In some ways, his movements between these three realms of existence can be seen as a form of dimensional travel. But that's not all. There are certain circumstances surrounding Hermes' journeys that have led some people to believe he might have had the ability to travel through time. Let's explore some of these ideas. One of the most interesting things about Hermes is his ability to appear and disappear at will. He would suddenly show up in different places and then just as suddenly vanish. This trait has led some people to believe that he may have been a time traveler who could jump from one time period to another. After all, time travel is often depicted as causing unpredictable changes to the space-time continuum, which could explain why Hermes sometimes appeared out of nowhere. Of course, this is just one interpretation of the myths. Others argue that Hermes' powers were more limited and that he was simply a master of disguise, who used his shape-shifting abilities to fool mortals. However, there is evidence in the myths that suggest Hermes' powers were far more vast. For example, in one myth, Hermes was able to manipulate the sun god Helios to drive his chariot backwards, effectively reversing the passage of time for one day. This feat alone would seem to indicate that Hermes had some control over the fourth dimension. If he could turn back the hands of time, then it's possible that he could also travel through time at will. Another interesting detail is that Hermes was said to carry a mysterious staff called the which was often depicted as having two serpents entwined around it. The origins of this staff are unclear, and it has been the subject of much debate among scholars. Some believe that it was a symbol of Hermes' role as a healer, while others think it represented his connection to alchemy or hidden technology. In fact, the caduceus has been linked to various deities and figures throughout history, including Asclepius, the god of medicine, and even Moses. This widespread use suggests that the staff may have had a deeper meaning that was lost to time. It is possible that the caduceus was a metaphor for a more advanced tool that was used by Hermes to manipulate the very fabric of reality. If we're willing to suspend our disbelief and consider the possibility that Hermes was a time traveler, then his staff may have been an actual device that allowed him to jump through time. After all, many cultures throughout history have had myths and legends about powerful objects that possessed magical ability. One of the most intriguing aspects of Hermes' character is his role as a deliverer of messages. In many myths, he is tasked with delivering important information, warnings, or secret knowledge to mortals. For example, in the myth of Perseus, Hermes was sent by Zeus to guide the hero on his quest to slay the Gorgon Medusa. During this journey, Hermes provided Perseus with tools and advice that helped him overcome obstacles and ultimately succeed in his mission. However, there is more to this myth than meets the eye. Some believe that Hermes was not just a helpful guide, but was actually a time traveler from the future who was sent back to ensure Perseus succeeded in his quest. After all, the ability to manipulate time would have been a valuable asset to any hero on a dangerous mission. And it is not hard to imagine that a time traveler from the future would have the knowledge and skills necessary to help someone like Perseus succeed where others might fail. This interpretation of the myth is supported by other stories in which Hermes appears to mortals and delivers cryptic messages that only become clear long after the fact. For example, in the myth of Heracles, Hermes delivered a prophecy to the hero that foretold his future glory, but also warned him of the dangers that lay ahead. This message was clearly important, but it was also vague enough that it could be interpreted in different ways. This ambiguity could have been intentional on Hermes' part as a time traveler from the future. He would have known that there were multiple possible outcomes for Hermes' story and would have needed to be careful not to influence the timeline too much. By delivering a prophecy that could be interpreted in different ways, Hermes was able to provide guidance without tipping the scales too far in any one direction. Overall, Hermes' role as a messenger and his habit of delivering cryptic messages that only become clear in hindsight are consistent with the idea that he was a time traveler from the future. This interpretation is also supported by the fact that Hermes was often depicted as carrying the caduceus, which has been linked to alchemy and hidden technology. If Hermes was a time traveler, then it's possible that his staff was a device that allowed him to jump through time. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for Hermes' time-traveling abilities comes from ancient texts that describe his interactions with mortals. In some myths, Hermes is said to have guided the souls of the dead into the underworld. This may seem like a straightforward task, but it actually has some pretty interesting implications. You see, the ancient Greeks believed that the soul was immortal, and that it continued to exist after the body died. When someone died, their soul would leave their physical form and travel to the underworld, which was ruled by Hades, the god of the dead. The journey to the underworld was not an easy one, however, and the souls of the dead often had to face many obstacles along the way. This is where Hermes came in. He was said to guide the souls of the dead, helping them to overcome any obstacles and reach the underworld safely. On the surface, this myth may seem like just another example of Hermes' many duties as a messenger of the gods, but when we consider the possibility that Hermes was a time traveler from the future, things get much more interesting. The realm of the dead is often seen as a metaphor for the past, and Hermes' ability to navigate this realm suggests that he may have had some control over time. Additionally, the fact that Hermes was able to guide souls safely to the underworld indicates that he had the ability to manipulate the forces of death itself. This would be consistent with the idea that Hermes was a time traveler, as manipulating the forces of death is often seen as a prerequisite for controlling time. Some myths take this idea even further, describing Hermes as playing tricks on mortals that defy the laws of physics. In one myth, Hermes is said to have stolen Apollo's cattle and then hidden them in a cave. When Apollo confronted Hermes about his theft, the god of messengers challenged him to a game of music and poetry. And get this, Hermes played the lyre so well that Apollo became enraged and drew his bow and arrow. An intense battle ensued, until Zeus intervened and ordered them to stop. Ultimately, Hermes kept the cattle and Apollo was furious. Now, let's set aside the question of whether or not Hermes was actually a time traveler. Just think about the implications of this myth for a second. Hermes was able to steal Apollo's cattle without being detected. Despite the fact that Apollo was one of the most powerful gods in the Greek pantheon, he was also able to play an instrument so well that he provoked an all-out war between two of the most powerful gods in the universe. These abilities seem almost otherworldly, and they make us wonder if Hermes was truly a being from another time and place. Could he have come from a future where humans had mastered the manipulation of matter and energy? Perhaps he had access to technologies that were beyond the comprehension of ancient humans. These are just some of the many questions that arise when we consider the possibility that Hermes was a time traveler. The truth is, we may never know for sure, but that's part of what makes Hermes such a fascinating figure. He continues to elude our understanding, even as we try to piece together the myths and legends surrounding his life. It's important to note that some people take the ancient astronaut theory to the extreme, suggesting that Hermes was a literal alien being from another planet. While this idea has some appeal, it's important to stay grounded in reality. There is no concrete evidence that aliens have ever visited Earth, let alone that they interacted with ancient humans. That being said, the ancient astronaut theory does offer an interesting perspective on Hermes and his possible origins. Perhaps he was a member of a highly advanced race of beings who came from a distant world. Maybe they possessed technology that allowed them to travel through time and space with ease. In the end, we may never know the truth about Hermes' origins, but that doesn't stop us from wondering and exploring the possibilities. The idea that he was a time traveler from the future is just one of many fascinating theories about this enigmatic deity. Whether or not it's true, it's a fun and thought-provoking idea to consider. While Hermes is a prominent figure in Greek mythology, his Roman counterpart, Mercury, shares many of the same characteristics. Mercury was also known for his speed and ability to move between different realms, often serving as a messenger between the gods and humans. Interestingly, Mercury has been associated with alchemy and magic in some ancient texts, which further supports the idea that Hermes may have been a time traveler. After all, alchemy is often seen as a precursor to modern chemistry and physics, which are essential to understanding the concepts of time travel. Overall, Mercury's association with speed and his links to alchemy and magic make him an intriguing candidate for the title of time traveler. While there is no concrete evidence to support this claim, The idea is certainly an interesting one to consider. Whether Hermes was a time traveler from the future or simply a master of disguise, his legacy lives on in modern culture. He is often depicted as a trickster figure who uses his wit and charm to get what he wants. But beneath his playful exterior, there may have been a deeper, more profound truth about his origins and abilities. Perhaps he was more than just a god, but a being from another time and place, possessing powers that were beyond the understanding of ancient humans. While we may never know the truth about Hermes, the possibility that he was a time traveler from the future is a fascinating one to explore. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to subscribe so you won't miss out on any future uploads. Have a great day and remember to keep an open mind about the mysteries of the universe.